Welcome to my throne of history. Actually, it's a chair in my living room with a black sheet thrown over it. But in history, you need to learn to use your imagination. So you better start using yours. From this throne, imagination, come on. From this throne, I'm going to take you on a journey of 10,000 years in 23 weeks. Crash helmet and full harness 5-point seatbelt probably required. We're going to go from 8000 BC until yesterday. Back in the time of COVID, there's a bit more history for you. Back in the time of COVID, I made a video for each of those 23 periods for children who were out of school because of lockdown. We're going to start by looking at the video I made for this period, and then you come back here to my throne. You've got it, haven't you? Yep. Come back here to my throne and I'll give you some more information and some ideas of how you could have a go at living in that period. Let's go to the period we've called mainly the Normans and watch that video I made and see what we need to remember about those times.
Yep, here we are back again after a slightly longer break than we intended, and that's because once again we're having to stay home and save lives. No, I didn't. As you can probably see, I didn't manage to get my hair cut in the short time between the end of lockdown number 2 and Christmas, and now I can't. So it probably will be Easter now before I get a haircut. It will be on the floor. I don't think so. Anyway, right, so how do we start? Exactly, what do we have to remember? Well, firstly, we have to remember that although we've called this mainly the Normans, it's a 200-year period, the last of our 200-year periods, and only, let me count quick, 34 and 54, 88 of those years were actually when a Norman king was reigning. But they had such an effect on our lives that we decided it would be mainly the Normans. So this is a period from 1000 AD, or 1001 AD, until 1200 AD. And it starts off with the same battle going on between the Vikings and the English king. Ethelred the Unready was still unready, and in about 1215, just checking it out, not 1215, 1015, he died. And he was replaced by a Viking king called Canute. It's all on the website. We've also got a little story that's told. It's probably a legend, but who knows? A legend is a story about somebody or something that might be true, but might not be. But it's a story about King Canute and his attempts to tell the waves to go away. He was a bit of an idiot, was he? Oh, right, okay. He was a bit of an idiot apparently in doing that. Anyway, after he died, his sons took over, but they didn't last very long. And so by 1042, Edward the Confessor was the King of England. Now just before that, in fact in 1020, we've got something on the website that really is very interesting. It's called the Julius calendar. It can actually be seen in the British Museum, but it's a calendar made hopefully by a man named Julius, otherwise he's badly named. And he tells you in that calendar what people do for each month of the year. So go and have a look at that and see. Anyway, Edward the Confessor became king. A bit unfortunate because Edward had been brought up in France, in Normandy in fact. And a lot of his advisors were French, were Norman. But anyway, he became king and he kinged away until 1066. And in that year, 1066, one of the most famous dates in English history, in that year we had 3 kings. No, not from Oriental. We had three kings because Edward died on, I think it was January the 5th, 1066. He was immediately succeeded by one of the chief earls in England at that time, a man called Harold. And but Edward, carelessly, had promised the throne to his friend from Normandy, a man called William. And William decided that this wasn't working well, and he sent over a messenger who said, "Excuse me, can I have my throne, please?" And Harold said to him, "Sorry, it's mine." And then William then in October decided he'd go and collect the throne and become King of England. So he invaded from the south. At the time, Harold was up north fighting his brother, who had enlisted the help of a Viking to come and restore his rule in the Kingdom of Northumbria. Harold then marched all the way back to London, didn't stop, which his mother told him he should, didn't stop, went all the way to Hastings, fought a battle with William and lost. And that meant, therefore, William became King of England. He marched on a rather circuitous route to London, and I think he was crowned, if I remember correctly, and I haven't got it up here so I can't tell you, but I think it was on Christmas Day, 1066, William was crowned king. And his influence over the country began almost immediately. He brought over a lot of Norman barons who were given parts of the country to rule. They built what was known as a Motte and Bailey castle, all explained on the website, go and have a look at it. Castles, not a castle, castles. In fact, there are lots of Norman castles and Norman churches all around the country. They still survive today. So if you get the chance, if we ever get the chance, go out and have a look at some and see what they were like. And now my hair is beginning to annoy me, but I'm not telling you that. Thank you. So that's William. He then, after he'd been reigning for about 20 years, he decided he'd like to know who was in the country. So he sent out messengers, and our story in this section tells you a little bit about how that may have worked. He sent out messengers to every part of the country, to every town, to every village. They had to write down who owned what, how many pigs they had, how many cows they had, and it all went into a massive book which you may have heard of called the Domesday Book. And the Domesday Book came out in 1085, and there was quite a big project for schools in 1985, yes, 1985, 900 years after, with the Domesday Book, but you can read all about it on the website. William then died in 1087 and was succeeded by his son, who was also called William. One of his sons had already been killed in a shooting accident. By the way, the Normans loved to hunt, and William in fact started the New Forest, or burnt down something like 20 villages so he could build a forest there. Maybe more than 20, check it out on the website. But the second son, William, only managed to last for 13 years before he was shot in the forest as well. You thought he was shot in the chest. You've been reading the website, very good. Yes, he was shot in the chest in the forest. It was said to be an accident. Nobody knows. But anyway, he was then succeeded by another of William's sons, whose name was Henry. And he was Henry the first Henry that had ever ruled in England. However, his brother, who was called Robert, thought he should be ruling, but he was away on a crusade when William II was killed, and by the time he got back, Henry was already king. There was then quite a dispute as to who was going to rule after Henry's death. All of this is on the website, and you can go and have a look at it. We also tell you a little bit about the founding of Oxford University and how marriages were arranged so that there would be an alliance between various countries. And this is what Henry I did with his daughter Matilda. But when Henry died, he is the one that died from eating too many fish. Yes, or a certain type of fish. Yes, and that's on the website as well. In fact, there's a picture of the fish. You can eat it as well, okay. So there was then something called the Anarchy, which ran from 1035 to sorry, not 10:35, 11:35. That's an hour later, thank you very much indeed. From 11:35 till 11:54, when there was a dispute between whether Stephen was king or Matilda. Again, all on the website, go and have a look at it. After that, after the death of Stephen, the Norman rule ended and we went over to something called the Plantagenets. And another thing we tell you about, in fact, was something called the feudal system, which affected nearly everybody's lives and was something introduced by William, and it really laid down a ranking as to where everybody was in society. So the king was at the top, then there were his lords, his barons, etc. And right down the very bottom were the peasants and what they had to do. So that's our timeline and the story, because I told them about the Doomsday Book. So what comes next? Your hoots, yes. So what are the hoots from? Well, homes, basically we tell you quite a lot about the grand castles that the Norman barons built. So you can go and have a look at that. On clothes, it was not much difference really. And in fact, Albert got so bored. Yeah, he must have been bored, because he told you a story about me and wearing the right clothes at the right time, in the right temperature. So that was that. Food, we tell you a little bit about the diet. We say how many meals they had, what they had at each meal time. Daily life, again, explains more about the feudal system, and it's not spelled like feudal. No, it's not. It's spelled F-E-U-D-A-L, but it's pronounced feudal, and it actually lasted for nearly 400 years. That sort of system of hierarchy of the lord of a manor and who was under him and so on. And then in the culture section, we talk to you a little bit more about monasteries, because the Normans were very religious and they built a lot of monasteries. The monks became a very big part of life. And the other thing in the culture we look at is the tournaments, the jousting, how they spent their time, and hunting. The hunting that went on, because as I said, the Normans loved their hunting. So that's the end of the Normans. That's the last 200-year period that we're going to do. So next time it's 100 years. So we'll join you then. See you. Bye. Now, you know everything about William, the man from Normandy who came across and became King of England. The man who won the Battle of Hastings. And one of the reasons we know so much about the Battle of Hastings, or quite a lot about the Battle of Hastings, is because of something called the Bayeux tapestry. Now, a tapestry is just sewing on a cloth, so you can sew particular shapes. And some nuns, it is thought, sewed a complete story of the Battle of Hastings. It's believed that the idea came from Bishop Odo, who was William's half-brother, and it is also thought that the tapestry, which is 70 meters long, was made by just one group of nuns, probably in Canterbury. The reason the historians think it was just one group is because the stitching on the whole 70 meters looks very much the same. The Bayeux tapestry can now be found in the French town of, guess what? You guessed it, Bayeux, which is in Normandy. Again, not difficult to guess. And funnily enough, my family were there about 2 or 3 weeks ago and totally failed to take any pictures of the tapestry at all, which is why I'm going to have to use library pictures to show you. There's the tapestry, all 70 meters of it. They did, however, take a picture of the museum in which the tapestry is housed. So there it is. Thank you very much, James. But what we thought we could do, or we could suggest that you do for the have a go, is to try and make a tapestry. Now, don't try and recreate the Bayeux tapestry, although in looking this all up,
I did discover that I think it's a primary school teacher in Cambridge called Mia Henson started in 2016 to recreate the Bayeux tapestry, and she's hoping to finish in 1066 Richard in 2027. So it's going to take her, it will have taken her about 11 years. So if you want to start now doing that, feel free. You won't be finished until 2036, 2037. I'll be 88, but if you email me and say I've just started it, I'll hang around especially to make sure I can come and see your finished Bayeux tapestry. But what we thought we'd do is just look at making a tapestry, and you can go to any art shop and buy, for very little money, buy a kit that allows you to do some what is called cross stitching, I think. It's an art subject, so obviously you're going to be impressed with this, kids. I got a 9 in my GCSE art. In those days 1 was the highest grade, 9 was the lowest, so you're not quite so impressed now. I thought it's not a good idea for me to do it, and therefore I have bought a little kit and given it to Molly. I think I gave it to her as a Christmas present a year or so ago, which is a bit naughty. I did give her another present as well. So we're going to now look at Molly doing some tapestry making, and she's not this good, by the way. Well, she is this good, but she's not this quick. I have speeded it up a bit so you can see what it's like. If you want to have a go, have a look around, see if you can find one of these kits and just try and make a very small version, a very small picture that is similar to the Bayeux tapestry. There you are. That's the Normans. We're taking a summer break now. We won't be back until the first Wednesday in September, which I think is the 3rd. Check it out though, just in case. We'll come back and we'll be looking at the Plantagenets because we have now finished the Normans. Except...
So William, he used his first name, unlike you.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, you said he was a Norman.
Yes, he was a Norman, but why was he unlike me?
Well, your full name is William Richards, but you used Richards.
Yep.
And you said he was William Norman, but used William.
No. He wasn't William Norman. He was a Norman, which meant he came from Normandy.
Oh, so do you come from Richmond?
No, I don't.
So William wasn't a Norman. He was just a William. I think you confused me on purpose.
I think you tried to do the same to me as well, but yeah, no. William was a Norman, but his name wasn't Norman.
Oh.
I am a Richard because that's my name.
And you're not from Richmond?
No, I'm not from Richmond or anywhere else that begins with Rich, or even Rich. I have nothing.
Well, that is very confusing.
I apologise. We've got summer break now. See if you can think things out till we come back into.
I've got a lot of thinking to do.